Today, I want to talk to you some more about our budget. You see, we are 6 weeks into the new fiscal year, and still California has no budget. Every day when we have no budget, we spend $52.5 million more than we are taking in on tax revenues. Now, there continues to be fundamental differences between myself and some of the legislators. One side is proposing higher taxes, more spending, more borrowing. And I'm fighting for lower taxes, no borrowing, and less spending. You know what occurred to me? This has been the same fight that I've been fighting over the last 6.5 years. It's always about, should we cut spending, should we live within our means, or raise taxes? It's the same fight also, of course, that goes back decades, not just during my administration. I mean, Ronald Reagan had the same fight, Jerry Brown, George W. Mason, Pete Wilson, Gray Davis, everyone had the same fight. Should we increase taxes, or should we live within our means like everyone else has to, like businesses have to, families have to, and so on? But why over all these years have it had to be this way? Why do Californians continue to suffer from the same deficits, the same dysfunction year after year? The problem is not just the players within a system. The problem is the system itself. That is why this year's budget cannot just be about short term, about getting the numbers straight and then get out of town. No, we must also adopt long-term reforms to put our finances on solid ground for generations to come. There's all kinds of reforms that we need. For instance, we must reform our state employees' pension system, which is $500 billion in debt. $500 billion, think about that. That means it's an equivalent of paying for our total education system 10 times over. Or to build the entire infrastructure that we need. All of the schools, all the university buildings, all the highways, the high-speed rail, all the mass transit, the levees, the affordable housing, everything. You can do this twice over. That's $500 billion. I mean, look over here, for instance, on this chart. We started 10 years ago with $150 million. Now it's up to $6.4 billion that we pay a year for our pensions. And in the next 10 years, if we don't do something about it and reform it, it will go up to $104 billion. But besides the pension system, we must also reform our broken budget and tax systems. That includes creating a real rainy day fund. The problem is, when the economy is good, Sacramento never sets money aside for the inevitable downturn. For instance, in 2000, revenue spiked by 23%. And again later on in 2006. Those were sugar highs. That's not what happens every year. I remember how everyone was so eager to spend all of that money. Oh, everyone was celebrating. But then the sugar is gone, we come down off that high. Bang. You see, we pump up those programs with a fury one year, only to deflate them the next year. With California's feast and famine approach, the elderly and the disabled live in constant fear that their benefits will be slashed. And parents and children worry year after year whether their children's music and sports and fitness programs get cut, or if the after-school programs get cut, or if the school year gets cut. Our budget is on a roller coaster ride, and there is no way to run a state. Now, we all know the economy is cyclical, but our budget doesn't have to be this way. And that is why I proposed a constitutional amendment to smooth out our spending and our budget. It forces Sacramento to save money in the good years to cover shortfalls in the bad years. It creates basically a rainy day fund, up to 12.5% of the general fund. So if the general fund is $100 billion, we put $12.5 billion aside and save it in a rainy day fund. Transfer to the fund will be mandatory, not voluntary. And money could only be taken out when there's truly a rainy day. Now think about this. If my reforms had been in place over the last 10 years, we would have had $12.5 billion in a rainy day fund going into this economic downturn. So we would have had that money available. We would have looked ahead and we would have said, okay, for the next 4 years we have a problem with our revenues. So let's divide this $12 billion into 4, and every year we would have had extra $3 billion for foster care, for in-home supportive services, for health care, for child care, for education, and all of those kind of things that are so important. With this reform, we can stabilize California's fiscal future. We can regain control of our budget. Let's not fall back into the chaos that we were in. That's why I'm calling on the legislators to pass this budget reform, the pension reform, the tax reform, all of those things, and to move this state, this great state, and the people forward, not backwards. Right now, we are climbing out of an economic crisis of a lifetime. But it's also an opportunity of a lifetime. I always say when there's a crisis, there are opportunities. The opportunity to fundamentally reform Sacramento. Let's make this the year where we get it done. So please urge your legislators to take action. And what I mean by action is just no taxes, no more spending, no increase in borrowing or any of this. Let's live it in our means and let's go and reform the broken system. Thank you for watching and thank you for listening.